That's working. See, if people start joining it, as this number goes up right here, that's how many people are watching online live. Last week it was like 10. There's one. Yeah, we would have 30 or 40 people watching at one time. Yeah. See the carols?
You know, pull the screen down.
That's why I set up back here. We can pull that down. Because last week I was up in front of there.
Right.
So I wanted to set up here so we can pull that screen down.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll just then shoot, because I told her it takes 30 to 40 minutes to start, which I think she'll pull the screen down. And I just got to burn the DVD, so it should be pretty error-free.
Last week they said they had problems with the sound, so I'm hoping this week is okay. You can see it's on Wi-Fi. I'm not connected by the cable this week. We'll see how that goes.
You want to tell people to turn their Wi-Fi off on their phone?
How many people do you think are really connected to our Wi-Fi?
I know my phone connects automatically. Yeah. I'm not doing anything, but I don't know if that affects it.
It just disconnected a second ago. I figured after everybody, if I get people in this row, I can connect manually, but I wanted to leave the room for people to walk through.
I believe it. Japan and China introduced music school, you used to have to take my recitals. Yeah. She had 2 tests done. Both of them said she didn't have any Because she is getting she hasn't really gone there. They're still researching it.
Good morning. And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Solano Valley. My name is Evan Yannick, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. Our denomination is unique because every Unitarian Universalist has the right to develop a personal philosophy of life without being told what to believe. We can learn from all philosophies. We explore important life issues in a caring community, united by shared values rather than by shared theological opinions. And no matter what we believe about theology or philosophy, we try to leave the world better than we found it. I encourage you to take note of our own mission printed on the front of our order of service. We like to make a tradition of welcoming visitors and guests, and so if you are feeling comfortable, we invite you to stand and tell us your name and where you're from. So are there any guests on this side of the church? No? All right, it's the home team. If you're interested in learning more about our church or about Unitarian Universalism, please fill out one of the little white cards you'll find in the pews so that we can stay in touch with you through our regular communication. We also invite everyone to stay with us after the service for our coffee hour so we can get to know you. Now, please silence your cell phones or anything else that makes noise, and we'll let our service begin.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We're glad you're here. We're not going to call you out. Good to see your faces this morning. Our opening words are for Unitarian Universalists. Here in this place of peace, find hope. Here in this place of connection, may we find life-giving. Let the unrest of our hearts turn us toward justice. Here in this space made sacred by memories of connection, let us each feel ourselves part of the new that grows from the old. Here in this place, we celebrate the spiraling unity of the years. Isn't it beautiful? Yes. Okay, so, thank you, guys. Please rise as you are willing and able and join us this morning. Earth was given as a garden. Hymn number 207.
creatures born of land and sky and sea, all created in your image, all living harmony. Show to us again the garden where all life flows fresh and free. And we guide your sons and daughters into full maturity. Teach us how to trust each other, how to restore our power, how to touch the earth with hands and one soul will lead and flow. Bless the earth and all your children, on creation make us whole. Interwoven all connected, planet by in our soul. Holy Mother, life bestow, in our ways and warfare seas, fill us all with grace of glory. Teach us how to live in peace.
I'm Ellen Metzner, of our youth choir and other musical activities here. The choir's having a break this month, and we'll get back to singing in August. For today, in lieu of live singing, we're going to show 2 of our virtual choir videos. We made 28 during the pandemic, which was for me a joyful way to be creative and connect with each other. I want to thank all the choir members for learning the ropes and patiently recording on their cell phones and sending them to me. If you're a choir member, you could stand up. Mary, David. Let's see, singing. It was an uphill curve for some of us. And of course, during the pandemic, a huge thank you to Evan, Yannick, Carolyn Shorkey, Susan Hicks, Michael, and all of us who kept the balls in the air during some trying times. It takes a while for the projector to warm up.
I know the feeling.
As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and you shall bear the sorry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go down, come on down. Oh, sisters, let's go down to the river to pray. As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and you shall bear the golden crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, brothers, let's go down, come on down. Oh, brothers, let's go down to the river to pray. As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and you shall bear the sorry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, fathers, let's go down, come on down. Oh, fathers, let's go down to the river to pray. As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way.
Right. You can't deny it. You can't deny it. That's one of my favorites. So, our reading this morning, number 614, in the back of the Great Hymnal. Number 614, I think we can read this responsibly. Black Elk. The Sacred Hoop. Then I was standing on the highest mountain of them all.
And round beneath me was the whole loop of the world.
And while I stood there, I saw more than I could tell.
And I understood more than I saw.
For I was seeing in the sacred manner the shape of all things of the Spirit.
In the shapes as they must live together like one being.
And I saw the sacred hoop of my people. It was one of many hoops that make one circle wide as day and starlight.
And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree.
To shelter all the children of one mother and one father.
And I saw that it was holy.
So, what I want to do, well, I'll do it later. No, we'll do it now. The joys and concerns of a joy, I'll kick it off, is that David Reed has turned 31 this week. We're going to sing happy birthday to 31-year-old.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear David. Happy birthday to you.
Actually, I turned 31 twice already.
So, this is the time when you come up and you light a candle, or Lady Di will light the candle, and you can share your joy, concerns, and your sorrow. Go offer it before you.
Good morning, I'm Andy Reed. And first, I want to share a joy to see Phil Freiberger here.
Yeah.
And second is a sorrow, but it's a concern really. A dear lifelong friend of mine since June passed away in December 2019, COVID, in New York. And she had been brought up Jewish in Asheville at Temple Beth Tefillah. And in the later years of her life, she converted to Catholicism. And when she died, she was alone in New York, and she was brought back here for burial. But her family had not been permitted to know of her conversion. And they then found out apparently would not give her a Jewish funeral, and nobody would make the arrangements for the Catholic funeral. So I don't know whatever happened with her since she was interred. And it made me think about what Michael's talking about today, endings in our own lives, that some people become so wedded to their own sense of what's right and wrong that the simple humanity of saying farewell to a loved one gets lost. So this is just a candle in memory of Priscilla Robinson, dear friend and wonderful lady.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Phil Freiberger. Been here a few times before, but not recently. We could all say that, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a joy of mine to be here to say hello to you all in person. Came of concern as well for you having to look at my changed appearance. I apologize for that, but there's not much can be done on short notice. So, I've lost a little bit of weight, as you probably noticed, but I'm still able to get around, and for as long as I can do that, I will be doing that, and look forward to seeing you here. I'm actually on the docket for the open night at White Horse Tavern on Tuesday. So that's a little clue in case you have nothing better to do. Anyway, so happy to be here in this place with you today, and great to see you all.
I also want to echo my fellow founder of this church, Phil, for being here today. Thank you. I just wanted to update you all because a lot of you have asked. Lucas, our brand new foster child who arrived July 4th to our home, is doing wonderfully. He's now almost twice the weight he was when we brought him home 3 weeks ago. So he's eating like his poppy, except a little more frequently. Thank God. And Aline, who had 2 bouts of pneumonia, is recovering and doing much better this morning anyways. So I just want to thank all of you who have prepared a meal or two for us during this difficult couple of weeks. There's nothing going on that a couple hours of sleep won't fix. So, and he's doing well, Aline's on mend, and we're getting by. So thank you all for your support.
Hi, Larry Dwellman. I have a concern about a very dear friend of mine, somebody that I've known for many years. I like saying that better than an old friend. And his name is Mel Brodsky, lives in California. And starting 3 years ago or so, he wrote me these cryptic emails about, I'm not sure I'm long for this world. And he sent me back letters I had written years ago. And but he would never get into any details about like, what's the issue. Mel always prided himself on being positive all the time, sometimes maybe to a fault. And I have not been able to contact him for the last few months. Emails don't get answered, phone calls don't go through. I've contacted other friends of his, they haven't heard from him. I don't know if the man's still on the planet, so I have a concern for my friend Mel Brodsky.
How happy I felt sitting there playing that hymn and listening to you all sing. Wow, it's just so good to be back.
Good morning, I'm Heidi. And I guess while I listened to these beginnings and endings, I'm on the joyful journey that is not always joyful, with my mom. And she asked for prayers this morning, and I asked her what for, Mom, and she said help. And so just to honor her, I asked for that. I also want to thank you all ahead of time. And already people have stepped up to be with my mom so that I can go be with myself or do whatever. And it feels like a long ask. And it looks like you all keep standing up, like Anna, and I'll forget you, not forget you, but Larry, and there are two more, Helen and Anne Silman have all been there for Mom, and I feel your love anyway. I mean, the coming love. Yeah, it's quite a journey, and that's it.
That's enough. For those of you who, for whatever reason, decided not to come up, just know we keep sending the love. We'll keep sending the energy to you, and we keep you in our hearts and in our arms. I'll share with you something I got the other day from Facebook. As some of you know, I was kicked off for some, I guess they were inappropriate, I don't know, but I was asked to leave, and so I did. And but I forgot that I had another account, and so I'm very careful what I post. So this is something I wanted to share with you. Now they say Charlie Chaplin 100 years ago when he was 26. I don't know if he did. So, with Facebook, we have to be careful with. I think you will enjoy it. So, having said that, please center yourselves as you know best how to do. And if you feel like closing your eyes or whatever, so keep your heart open and listen to this piece words of meditation. As I began to love myself, I found anguish and emotional suffering are only warning signs that I was living against my own truth. Today, I know this is authenticity. As I began to offend somebody, if I tried to force my desires on this person, even though I knew the time was not right and the person was not ready, even though that person will sometimes need respect. As I began to love myself, I stopped craving for a different life. And I could see that everything that today, I call this maturity. As I began to love myself, I stopped designing huge projects for the future. Today, I only do what brings me joy and happiness and things that I love. And I do them in my own way and in my own way. Today, I call this simplicity. That is no good for my health. Food people, things, situations, and everything that drew me down and away from myself. At first, I called this attitude a healthy egoism. Today, I discovered that this is modesty. As I began to love myself, I refused to go on living in the past and worrying about the future. And so now I only live for the moment where everything is happy. Today, I live each day, day by day, and I call it fulfillment. As I began to love myself, I recognized that my mind can disturb me and make me sick. But as I connected in into my heart, my mind became a valuable ally. Today, I call this connection wisdom of the heart. We no longer need to fear arguments and confrontations or any kind of problems with ourselves or others, because even stars collide, and out of their crashing, new worlds are born. Today, I call this life. And so, now while I have your attention, I leave you with the eloquence of silence. And so it is.
Our second choir video is one I treasure, a composition of mine called A Garment of Brightness. It was a joy collecting the art photos from the choir members and then adding them to the soundtrack with iMovies, a whole new learning for me. This is a song of thanks from the Tewa Pueblo tribe, for whom the fringe dancing shawl has deep meaning. And as I offer this, I keep in mind the families of the indigenous children whose remains are just now being found at boarding schools and reinterred into the earth of their homelands.
Oh, our Father, bring you peace and love. Then we must abandon the brightness. We must abandon the brightness. May the war be the white light of morning. May the red be the red light of evening. May the bridges be the falling rain. May the water be the standing rainbow. Let us read for us the garment of brightness. For us the garment of brightness. That we may walk fittingly where the restless rain. Oh, our mother, the earth. Oh, our father, the Father. Oh, your children are we, and the fire task. We bring you peace that belong. We bring you peace that belong. And we must abandon the brightness. We must abandon the brightness. May the war be the white light of morning. May the red be the red light of evening. May the bridges be the falling rain. May the water be the standing rainbow. Let us read for us the garment of brightness. For us the garment of brightness. That we may walk fittingly where the restless rain.
We have a tree, another tree. Bill is going to play. And I just want to thank you ahead of time for your generosity. And thank you. That's all I can say. And thank you. So I just want to tell you some bad jokes. Just a few, because we have a lot to finish here. I'm going to try to do them. Anyway, and they're not really jokes, they're just witty aphorisms that you could use in your daily life. A boiled egg is hard to beat. Police were summoned to a care center. A 3-year-old was resisting arrest. Oh. I'm still waiting for the shoe to come up. Did you hear about the fellow whose entire left side was cut off? It's okay, he's all right now. A bicycle can't stand alone, it's just too tired. I think that's enough, don't you? I'm telling you, these are from Roberta Madden. Look how thick it is. Larry Perlman sent me some bad ones too, they'll be coming up. Okay, let's talk a little bit about going from endings to beginnings. And I just want to remind you, when I was younger, before I heard of Unitarian Universalism, and I was studying the Bible, I became obsessed with what Orthodox Christians call the Last Judgment. And it was supposed to be the end of the world, or at least the end of the world as we know it. And part of this, I couldn't stop thinking about the event. I was trying to, when is this going to happen? And these obsessive thoughts, well, obviously, I was indoctrinated and I drank the Kool-Aid at the time, the fear and the conservative and literalist beliefs of the clergy and their interpretations of the Bible. And I must admit, sometimes when I'm at home and I'm flicking through the channels, I peek. I say, what's going on? Because I'm telling you, if you look at the geopolitical situation now and you compare it, you have to know a little bit about Bible prophecy. I mean, I went back and reread the late great Planet Earth. I remember Orson Welles did a terrible job he did, but it got me going. And sometimes, because it's all interpretation, it lines up. Now, I don't know, I don't, that's as far as I want to go with that. But we now know, because of scientific research with quantum physics and other metaphysical studies, we know that we can create what we focus on. We can create what we focus on. And so it can be troubling. I remember a couple of years ago, there was this group of people, they were in Israel and here in the United States. And this is where we're going to talk about control freaks. They were talking about, I don't know how they were going to do it, even though we go to war at the drop of a hat. They were trying to speed up Armageddon so they could force Jesus to come back. Now that's control. but I mean, all these minds focusing, and so we can create that. Maybe not exactly, but we can create individually and collectively our realities, again, because whatever we focus on, you put all that energy. And when people say, send me your joys and send me your prayers, what they're saying is, and some of y'all don't like to use the word, send me your energy. So whatever you call it, what you're saying is, I want y'all to focus positively on this outcome. And it does work. It does work. For most of us, I mean, and then is that really the best way to spend your time, I guess is the question, as an evolved, and I put that in quotes, species. But because every ending is a new beginning, let's unpack that. For most of us, good stories or events are things that we don't want to end. For instance, if a good book makes us laugh or cry, we love that book, and we want to hold on to those feelings, right? Yet even a happy ending can bring heartache. And we know that no story is complete without its ending, because a good ending can be the best part of the story. Endings in our own lives are sometimes much harder to appreciate because we resist them, not wanting to let them go. In many ways, life itself is a series of learning when to hold on and when to let go. When you're a child, sometimes you get rewarded for holding on and you get punished for letting go. And then sometimes you get rewarded for letting go and punished for holding on. It's a whole series of when. I'm reducing it to it's crass, but you get my point. We grieve not only literal deaths, but we also grieve the death of relationships, of careers, of places to live, even faith or ways of being in the world. When I became a Unitarian Universalist, I had to leave that the other way behind, and I had to grieve that, and I had to acknowledge it, first of all. But I had to leave, it was a different way of being in the world. And so at times, accepting these losses can really seem impossible. The Buddha taught that suffering comes from attachment to our stubborn grip on earthly things that we think can provide lasting happiness. Yet loss is both constant and inevitable. And Jesus taught the same lessons 500 years after the Buddha. He said that you don't need to store up earthly things or earthly treasures where moths and rust can come and corrupt them. The human desire and need to tell stories to shape our own lives into narratives can both trap us in attachment and sometimes offer us a way out. The most difficult kind of loss is one that changes the story we thought we were telling. Think about the story you're telling yourself about your life, and I hope it's a true one. I hope it's an authentic one. Untimely death, divorce, unexpected devastation, these are just some of the things that can catch us by surprise. Perhaps the loss of a perceived truth. Learning that something we believed in or based the story upon our lives on is mistaken and corrupt. We see this in the political realm. Don't confuse me with the facts. This is the story. I need this story. That's why you have to be careful when you burst other people's bubbles. My mom used to say, you don't burst anyone else's bubble unless you have a better thing to put in its place. We don't want to face the loss. We don't want to turn the page and to see what's coming. We wish we could stay happy forever. Keep our grip on the happy ending that was really not so happy at all. We keep telling ourselves the same story over and over and over, even though we know it's a lie. I mean, again, we look in the political realm, not just there, but you see it. Imagine being so ashamed of your history that you're afraid to tell your children about it. That's what's happening in our country now. Again, this is where at times some stories can save us or they can heal us in the same places where they wound us. A hero or shero is one who faces disaster, goes boldly forward, and I'm just saying this because I don't like people to tell me who my hero should be. I don't like that. I get to choose. But a hero or shero goes boldly toward the thread of their own stories or narratives, and they embrace the possibilities. There's an old therapeutic saying, the only way out is through. If not, they're not worthy to be called a hero or shero. I have heard the definition of a hero described as someone who dares to experience what is happening at any given moment, internally and externally, without denying or resisting or seeking to escape. Some people call that Buddhism. or a very enlightened Christianity or Muslim. Labels get in the way. In our culture, we're constantly told who our heroes and sheroes should be, but with this new and different definition I gave you, just slightly, in its very essence, the heroic act is bravery in so-called mundane moments. It doesn't have to be grandiose. I don't have to run into the building and risk being barbecued to bring somebody up. That's good. But for me, this more practical one is more realistic, because all of us do it every day, because it takes courage to live. It takes courage to let go and to find an ending and a new beginning. So if there are any dragons or demons that need to be slain, they're all in here. They're all in here. Oh, and here. But you can't get here from here. It's confusing. Existential everyday courage is what I call it. We can all be potentially be heroes and sheroes with this definition, because it is heroically brave to divest yourself from attachment to the past, to move into the unknown future, to detach from the story we keep telling ourselves. In other words, it takes courage to live with integrity and authenticity. So without the hero or shero crossing into the darkness of the unknown, crossing over into the great abyss, if you will, there's no reaching the next step, which is what? Which is rebirth. A new beginning. You still with me? I hear Al snoring back there. I know, I'll hear about it afterwards. I'll tell you a bad joke. So if she does not let go of her beginning, not just ours, but if she does not let go of her beginning, she cannot move on to the rest of her story. So this is the journey without distance, because it's the inner journey that we're talking about. Letting go and accepting the truth of the present moment, no doubt, can be frightening, but once we meet it, and once we recognize it, once we acknowledge it, once we embrace it, then we move on. Then we move on. We know on some level that the Buddha's description of suffering is true, and while one cannot escape loss, while one cannot escape suffering, we can escape, sometimes briefly, but not perfectly, but briefly. We can escape it when we can resist the human impulse to rebel. We can resist reacting to life when we should be responding to it. It's true that once we let go and move on to the into the abyss of not knowing what's on the other side, because we don't, but we can move on, but we can never go back. However, endings can bring you back to the home you long for, even when the journey has changed you, even though the journey seemed designed to take it all away from you. T.S. Eliot reminds us of this in the quote that at the end of all our journeying, we come back to the place we started, but what? We know it for the very first time. So there's a cyclical nature of life. That's why we have the infinity symbol today. I see this in the biblical story of Jesus. I see it in the biblical story of Moses, the Quran story of Muhammad, the Dhammapada story of the Buddha and others. And because it's our story as well. Whether you believe it literally or not, we all have been there. That's why these stories resonate with us. Because it's our story as well. I'm sure you can recount the times in your life when your journey changed you and a rebirth had to occur, but only if you took the chance. Only if you took the chance. It's we got a lot going on in the world. We can agree about that. And you're gonna need to take some chances. There are gonna be some endings and beginnings. Some we're gonna like and some we're not gonna like. You're just kidding yourself if you don't believe that, if you don't know that. I see this in the story of Adam and Eve. They're banished from the Garden of Eden. You know the story. This is usually described as the fall of humankind, and a woman caused it all. Disgraceful. Adam and Eve are expelled from the garden. They're separated from God. They're cursed with hard labor and pain. See, women have pain in childbirth all because of this story. All because of their quest and thirst for knowledge. And so they strike out alone. Grieving and mourning, no doubt. They had, see why? Because they had it good in the garden. It's good to be in the garden. And all the needs are taken care of. You wear your little leaves or nothing at all. Grapes and wine. I mean, who wouldn't want to leave the garden? They are forever changed, though exiled from their home, and they must be prepared to find and make a new home. I imagine them leaving holding hands. Pissed off at each other. Maybe even Eden is behind them, but the entire for them. You see, collectively and individually, we can't grow until we leave Eden behind. We can't grow until we leave home behind. Whether it's your marriage, if it's not working, whether it's your religion, whether you got to move to, maybe you have to leave the country. But you can't go until you leave certain things behind. Now, I'm not saying go out and get divorced, but if things aren't working for you, okay? If your friendships aren't working for you, if your job isn't working for you, David can tell you, he's 31, he can tell you how fast time goes. It goes fast. You don't have time. Goldman had to leave his father's opulence and to journey out into the real world in order to discover what life was really about. Before he could become the awakened one, before he could become the Buddha. Jesus, the gospel story. Beautiful, painful. Good Friday comes before Easter. Has to. He had to find out who he was. How do I live the committed life? Jesus the man and Jesus the Christ are two different people, though. We know that, right? Jesus is a historical figure. Christ is a consciousness. It's a way of being aware. It's a new awareness. It's a new consciousness. So is Buddha consciousness. We get that mixed up. He was not born to Mr. and Mrs. Christ. Howard Thurman reminds us that the contradictions of life are not final contradictions. Khalil Gibran tells us that when you reach the end of what you should know, you will be at the beginning of what you can sense or learn. And we need to be reminded of this constantly. I'll share with you a poem by someone named Sierra. I like the name, but that's all I could find. There was no last name. Every end is just a new beginning, a chapter closed, but always printing. All memories earned in pain and laughter, one book to be closed, but a quest to be after. If life is a cable and hope is the wheel, and love is the arrow in the Achilles heel, one line was cut, yet the thread is still spinning. For every end, hope delivers a new beginning. No need for words, goodbyes, or sorrow. There is never forever, but only tomorrow. When all doors close and we choke with despair, and the new day brings open windows and fresh air. At the end of the road, on the edge of the earth, I continue with purpose for all that is worth. I take a leap forward, I jump into the dark. There can never be an end when there's life in my heart. For those of you with a more Eastern bent, a more Buddhist bent, if you will, a more esoteric, a more metaphysical bent, I share with you this poem by a brother named Michael Hopkins. This is called From Endings to Beginnings, which is where I got the title of today's sermon. Brother Hopkins writes, and I love this idea. When all has been said and done for this lifetime, and we bathe in the light of creation on the other side, we will look back with fondness at our deeds. We will be greeted upon arrival of trees. The joy of living shall know the love that eluded us when we were in human form. Then we will know what we are and why we came to the place of our birth and death. Then we will be at peace and in love with all living things until the next time we descend into the world of forgetfulness. I'm setting you up for the reincarnation sermon. Oliver Wendell Holmes, another brilliant brother, reminds us that the human mind, once being stretched, can never go back to its original dimensions or ways of thinking. So endings and beginnings, let's wrap it up, can leave us a bit more wiser and a lot more experienced. Life is not linear, but cyclical, and the journey, is what I'm trying to say, never really ends. Because life has no opposite. Life has no opposite. The opposite of death is birth. Life is eternal, says spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle. If you walk through a forest completely untouched by human beings, you will be astounded by how much life surrounds you, those of you who hike. But also in this unspoiled environment, you will find death all around you. For instance, a fallen tree rotting away on the ground. This tree is fueling life. Its death gives nutrients to the soil, a home to insects, a feeding place for animals. This so-called death is essential to life. This is the cycle of life. Evaluate, edit, evolve. Evaluate, edit, evolve. When something doesn't quite fit exactly, you'll know it. Trust me, you already do. It's not that many are called and few are chosen, it's that many are called but few choose to listen. There's an inner voice inside you now. Listen to it, be still, listen to it. It's speaking to you right now as I'm speaking. We often justify or reason away or rationalize our gift of intuition, only to repeat the same old mistakes over and over again because we don't trust ourselves. Be conscious of being attached to something that doesn't fit you because you are afraid of the discomfort of its ending. You may not know what lies ahead, but that's the exciting part. A world of possibilities awaits you. When all is said and done, the miracle of ending is that it gives us the gifts that we need to begin again. So here's to the endings. Here's to the endings that break you, and here's to the beginnings that build you. Here's to the new beginnings that fog up your endings in the rearview mirror. You can look back and still move forward. You can learn from the past and still move on. But you see, it sometimes takes an ending to begin again. And hopefully, whatever the situation, we can begin again in love. That's the A game. As A Course in Miracles reminds us, we need to, the question is, can we learn to teach only love? Because that's what we are. That's what we are. Even when you make heinous mistakes, that's where you come from and that's where you go back to. But you can't get it from you. Can't get it from you. Western science, they can't get that. As they say in the 12-step program, this is how we got here. So don't walk out of here and say I'm anti-science. Let it sit for a moment. There's an old African American saying that goes like this: I may not be what I ought to be, I may not even be what I should be, but thank God I'm not what I used to be. In other words, all endings have new beginnings. May it always be so. Amen and blessing. All right. Closing hymn, number 212. Please rise as you are willing and able. We are dancing Sarah's Circle. Phil, Linda, Sue Stone. We want to give you a special round of love. Thank you. To those of you who came here seeking a holy this morning, may the holy go with you and in you. To those of you who came here seeking to embrace life, may life return your affection. I'm a dead man now. To those of you, I should stay back here, who came here seeking a better way, may a way be found for you. And may not only may that way be found for you, but that you have the courage to take it. The power of truth be upon us, the blessing of love sustain and envelop us, and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.